Story 1. There's a confidence that comes with it. Things are just different when you always know you could afford a lawyer, a tow, to be sick for a few days, a replacement phone, whatever expense might come along. Maybe it would be unpleasant, but it would be in a there goes some savings kind of way, not a do I not eat or not pay the gas bill way. You don't have to be rich for that level of security, but you do have to be not truly broke, and folks who never cross that line act differently. It doubles down with a solid family life, too. Folks who know their rock bottom would be moving back in with a mom and dad who are willing and able to support them. Story 2. My friend group has always been poor. However, one of them is dating someone from an old money family. I'm talking about $15 million just for a distant relative passing away. In a group chat, we were joking around with one of them for spending $200 on a dinner date, and later she replies, "We're all poor." When we went on an all-couples vacation, we went grocery shopping to save on spending all the time. She was throwing things in the basket and not even noticing the price. I was definitely jealous she could do that. My friend always gets stuck paying the entire bill as well, and the old money partner got a tummy tuck, so she only eats 2 bites. Okay, that's fine. Eat this meal in increments throughout the entire day. She throws away the leftovers and gets him to buy another meal. On the trip, I forgot my snow gloves, so my friend offered to buy me some. She quickly whipped her head around and said, "You don't have enough money for that." I was never going to take his offer, as I had my own money. But I also realized they're the stingiest people on the planet. Story 3. They do not equate how many hours work to how expensive something is. For example, when I fill up my car, I think, gee, that took me 9 hours after taxes to fill up my car. Or, that pizza is 2 hours of work. Guess I'm not hungry. Story 4. When my teacher complained about me not having a computer in the 1990s, she said, "Everyone has a computer." I literally never knew anyone who had a computer at that point in my life. Story 5. The first solution to every problem is to throw money at it. To the point where joyfully learning a new skill is to them a burden diligently avoided by outsourcing. Story 6. An old classmate of mine was extremely disappointed with what he got for Christmas. He only got a gaming laptop for $3,000, a brand new iPad, a brand new iPhone X, or whatever the most expensive model is, new ski boots, new skis, a new ski jacket, and new ski pants. I was happy that I got gifts in total for about $80 over Christmas. Story 7. Blatant ignorance of hardship. My mom works for a lot of rich people, and they're constantly presenting how little they understand that some people have to do anything. They're always asking her, "Why don't you just refuse? Why do you put up with that?" And they just don't understand that she had to. Story 8. I noticed this one with my partner recently. Not pursuing refunds because it would involve effort, for example, mailing something or making a phone call. Wild to me, but to him it's not worth it. Story 9. When I am riding shotgun and say something like, "Oh, gas is getting cheaper again," and they answer, "I do not pay attention to the price. I just fill up when I need to. Look man, no need to flex on me so hard." Story 10. People who will throw away everything that is just a little expired, and people who will throw away vegetables and fruits when they do not look 100% fresh anymore. Story 11. My partner does not touch the hospitality tray in hotels. Like, baby, we are not filling our pockets with tea bags and biscuits, and we are leaving the free soap? What? Story 12. It's not necessarily an action, but just a certain level of ignorance, of no fault of their own. They don't understand or relate to the things people do to get by and just ask, "Well, why don't you blank?" Story 13. My buddy and his wife were pregnant, and my fiancé was talking to her and said, "We see so much baby stuff when we go thrifting. We should go look at it." My friend's wife's response was, "We don't do used." It really turned me off to her, and I'd known her for 8 years and lived with them at one point. Story 14. My friend went to Dubai for 3 months and then Italy for 3 weeks. Not for a job though, just vacation. When I asked her how she could afford that, she said, "Traveling is cheap." What do you mean? Story 15. Oh, so many examples come to my mind. I worked for a long time with a guy who was the epitome of silver spoon syndrome. He was a manager in our company thanks to his dad. One day we got legal paperwork for a judgment and wage garnishment against one of my crew. Silver Spoon Boy says, in a frustrated tone at having to deal with it, "I don't get this. Why doesn't the worker just pay their bills?" I wanted to say, you try supporting a family on that employee's paycheck. Story 16. Dropping out of college because you are not the one who has to pay that money back. I have a friend who has dropped out of college twice in her life. She also rarely has a job, and when she does, she will only work 3 days a week at most, but lives alone and has name brand and designer everything. She is 32, and her parents supplement her entire life. They probably should have made her pay for college or at least had some sort of financial consequence for dropping out. Story 17. Not having a savings account. I have friends who know that they are getting an inheritance, or their parents can back them up, so they spend all of their money on whatever. They do not worry about saving. Story 18. For me, it's when people try to have a struggle story without having a concept of what an actual struggle is. The stories are often hilarious because the things they make up in their own minds are nowhere near what it's like to actually struggle. Story 19. When someone breaks something, shows no emotion when it breaks and says, "It's no big deal, I'll just get another one," then proceeds to toss the broken item without a single care given. Story 20. I grew up in a pretty affluent city, but in the not affluent section. Like, my friend lived in Bristlecone Pines, and our neighborhood was Section 138, according to city records. Our gauge in high school was where you had your garbage can in the kitchen. Under the sink or hidden in a pantry closet was rich. Hidden in a custom cabinet, but still technically in view of visitors, was middle class, and just standing in the corner of the kitchen someplace was poor. We even asked kids who came to the school mid-year where their garbage was in their kitchen. Story 21. After they come home with groceries, ask them what the various items cost. If they do not know any of the prices of the items they just bought, they have never been poor. Story 22. Entitlement, especially about privacy. The poor cannot afford to be private, which is why all their business is out in the open. Can be very humiliating, but if you've been poor for a while, you can become accustomed to it. Story 23. So, one time after I had just started a new job, I was eating lunch. This was a lunch I packed myself. It was a sandwich and some other stuff. I don't like crust on a sandwich. So I was sitting there minding my own business, picking my crust off. Some guy says to me, "You've never been poor before, have you?" I said, "Excuse me." He repeated himself. Honestly, I was so shocked I don't remember the rest of the conversation. The thing is, when I was a kid, my parents were on drugs. We lived in a plywood shack behind my dad's work. We showered with a garden hose and used a bucket for a toilet. Forget you, random coworker, for assuming you know my life because I don't like crust. Story 24. It is not your fault if you are born poor, but it is yours if you die poor. This is a statement made by a person who has no clue how poverty is the biggest hindrance to economic mobility. Story 25. What I find interesting in the West is how blindly people are willing to confound wealth with possessions. I own very few clothes and have no vehicle of my own, so on the surface I may not appear wealthy, but the reality is I also have no debt. Sure, it's sunshine and rainbows on the outside, but if the bank owns your $400,000 house with your newly installed $70,000 pool, as far as I'm concerned, I'm richer. Story 26. They constantly travel around the world, and in their home country, they visit spas every week and travel to a big city on the other side of the country just to shop. I wondered if they hadn't heard of online shopping, but it was probably an excuse to get into the hustle and bustle of the big city. Story 27. A rich buddy of mine was surprised when I shut off the water while I brushed my teeth. He said that his family always let it run the whole time. It was an alien concept to him. Story 28. Someone asking you to just buy them something and they'll sort it out later, the bigger the item, the more it's obvious, is a big assumption that someone has free cash flow for that and the ability to wait to be paid back. Also, people that say they will pay you back but forget. It doesn't matter if it's 10 cents or $10. I don't forget and pay it back as soon as possible. Story 29. I grew up poor. My boyfriend did not. He very much has the mentality of, if you need it, Just buy it. Which puts me in such a panic. It can be super simple things, like when he wanted a toaster, and rather than being on board, I was like, I mean, we have the oven. Story 30. Hey, rent is an emergency when they're going to throw you out. There's no such thing as a rainy day fund when you're deciding between the diapers that you know don't work and putting off that dental work on the tooth that makes starving less painful. Story 31. I grew up middle class, but as someone with autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, I thank goodness I had the privilege to get my own room from when I was 4. I get very stressed from sharing rooms. I can do it for short stretches like hostels with friends during week-long train trips, but having to adjust to someone else's morning rituals is very stressful long-term for me. Having to sleep 3 kids to a room would likely have driven me mad. Story 32. I install and do maintenance on backup generators for a living. Some of the places I've been to could fit my entire house in their living room. All these perfect communities of identical houses with their brick facades are right on top of each other but cost more than everything I own tripled. Every day I am reminded I am pretty poor, and these people are not. Story 33. I know someone in a well-paying white-collar job. She was complaining about paid maternity leave and how it wasn't fair that mothers get to take paid leave but she doesn't. I had to tell her it was hard to take her complaints seriously when a lot of jobs don't offer paid maternity or sick leave. Story 34. The comment, a price of X-Bucks isn't going to stop anyone from buying. I once heard this said about a €4 ticket to an event, highlights being ignorant of the pressure of having to manage your economic balance in an extremely strict fashion. Nothing extra. Nothing. Story 35. I was poor as a kid, but I didn't realize how good I had it until someone had a panic attack when I said they should go see a doctor, or when I made a face because someone hadn't seen a dentist in a few years. Story 36. People who waste food throw away leftovers and discard bags of lettuce after just one day of being open. They throw things away if they try something new and don't like it. Story 37. When one of my professors at college says, just go buy nice dress shoes. They're really not that expensive. If you're going to a school like this, you've clearly got money, knowing full well I'm there on grants and scholarships alone. Story 38. When someone says people are poor because they do not work hard enough. People that are struggling to make ends meet and managing it are often some of the hardest working people you will find, out of sheer necessity. The sad truth of the matter is that working hard makes you a moral victor but cannot make you rich if you are not doing the right kind of work for the right people at the right time. Story 39. My first girlfriend in college thought for a while that the reason my parents hadn't bought me a car was because I was rebellious. She thought every kid got a car at 16, 18, or graduation unless they had upset their parents or done something very bad. Because that's how it worked in her social circle, every kid gets a nice car. She was also disgusted when she found out neither of my parents had degrees, and that my mom was a stay-at-home mom for most of my childhood. Story 40. You never have to coupon or purposely go out for sales on groceries. My friend is a millionaire, and he never goes out to the grocery store when meat is half off like I do. Story 41. I just don't understand why people don't just insert weird expensive thing here. I nearly slapped a girl I was dating when she asked why my family didn't take vacations like her family did. I just don't understand why your parents don't go anywhere special for vacation. I just don't think an annual trip to Wisconsin is that special. Haven't they ever been to France? No, Becky, they haven't. And Wisconsin is right next door. Story 42. My ex was not from a wealthy family, but she never went without and was not ever exposed to money problems. I come from a struggling single-parent household, and the two extremes caused a lot of issues in our relationship. We would fall out a lot over her wanting to buy various things or wanting to go on several holidays a year. When I would say it is not realistic and we need to be careful, I would always be told I was too negative or I should not worry because it's only money. Story 43. It's simple things for me. Leaving lights on all over the place. Wasting food. Buying stuff you want to try, then throwing it away. Making more than you need and throwing it away. Not eating leftovers. Leaving doors standing open when the heat or air conditioning is on. Story 44. I worked a part-time job when I was a student, where I got paid every Wednesday. I supported myself entirely, and by the time I got to Tuesday, I typically have spent the last of my weekly paycheck. Nearly every week, my flatmates would suggest we go out somewhere on Tuesday night, and I'd explain I had no money. Every time, they'd say something like, "Yeah, I've got no money either, but you'll only need 10 pounds for some drinks." This was the 1990s, and I would explain that I did not have 10 pounds. They were all nice people, but they all came from comfortable middle-class families and got allowances from their parents. To them, no money meant less money than they'd like. They couldn't comprehend the idea that no money could mean literally not having any money. Story 45. Horrible financial life advice. My best friend grew up with money and married a girl whose parents had money. Every time he gave advice, it was horrible because he could not understand that normal people can't just call their parents to prevent their house from being foreclosed on because they took stupid risks, both stupid ideas and stupid levels of risk.